course, the big news that we are covering a lot today has to do with the president's decision this weekend to let Congress weigh in on whether or not there should be a strike against Syria. And the regime of Bashar Assad, a man who has used chemical weapons, apparently, we are told, against the population there. Joining us now for his thoughts on this, Congressman Randy Forbes, Republican, 4th Congressional District of Virginia. Congressman, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I hope you guys are doing well.
We're doing well. Gosh, this is going to be an interesting discussion. Have you attended any of the briefings that have been given up on Capitol Hill?
I've been on a number of the conference calls that have been discussing this issue, and we have several hearings, as you know, that are scheduled and several other briefings. But we feel like most of the information we have been given at this particular point in time. We don't expect a lot of surprise information to be coming out.
All right. So I just was talking to Congressman Frank Wolf a minute ago. He was on our show a moment ago, and he said that he gets the distinct impression that even if Congress says, no, Mr. President, we're not with you on this, he may go ahead and do it anyway.
Well, you know, this has been a president so far that not only will disregard Congress, but he's disregarded the law in so many areas that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Frank is probably accurate in at least discerning at this particular point in time. We don't know what the president is going to do. I don't think our allies know what the president's going to do. And quite honestly, I don't think they know what they're going to do in the White House yet.
Well, Representative Randy Forbes is our guest. He's a member, by the way, of the House Committee on Armed Services and the chairman of the subcommittee on Sea Power and Projection Forces. So his voice is going to be an important one in this ongoing discussion. And Congressman Forbes, we've spoken to General Tom McInerney today. We've spoken to A.B. Stoddard from the Hill, Representative Frank Wolf, and we've also spoken to our listeners. We've opened up the phone line to let them chime in on it. And I have to say, Congressman, I'm shocked how many of them feel and are worried and concerned that this Syrian subject is can be seen as a distraction away from a lot of the really imminent pending fiscal issues that your Congress was about to take up in this month of September. You only have 9 days scheduled in Congress this month, and you've got the debt ceiling, you've got a continuing resolution, you've got Obamacare looming. What do you say to those constituents who say this Syrian thing, this is just a distraction? Don't let the administration do this.
Well, first of all, I agree that we shouldn't be going into Syria. Secondly, I agree that we've got a lot on our plate in terms of fiscal problems that we have made for ourselves, some of them, and some of them are just things that we need to come to grips with and have different policies than what we have. But I will say this, national security issues, we always have to find time for them, and we have to be able to deal with them. I do believe, though, Syria is a huge distraction, but not just from the fiscal problems that you mentioned. I think it's a distraction from two main components of our national security interests that we're not focusing on as much because of Syria. The big concern we have is still Iran, and I don't want Syria to get us off of looking at Iran. But then the other one that, Brian, you and Larry know, is the dismantling of the military that this administration has been doing for the last 4 years. I mean, if you just walk through some of the things they've done, you know, they had $587 billion of cuts to the military. Then they had sequestration. Then they took off our F-22 production lines. They want to mothball 7 of our cruisers. That would have been twice the firepower of the entire surface capability of the British Navy.
Right.
They want to cut back on our carriers. And, you know, they've taken our land-based missile defense systems out. So they love to use the military. They just don't want to support it and build it up. We need to focus attention on that.
You say you've gotten most of the information you think you need to make a decision. I guess you'll listen to the debate, but you're leaning about voting against this, right?
Yes, and let me clarify that. I don't expect any major surprises to come out in the additional information. And when I say I've gotten the information, I am going to continue to listen to the White House, listen to the administration on anything they put forward, but I'm not expecting them to come forward with any major information that I'm not aware of.
All right. So here's the second question. If you're going to vote no, how do you think the Congress is going to vote? Is it going to be a no against the president?
I've been on some conference calls with members of Congress, and I can tell you guys overwhelmingly they're echoing what you're hearing from your constituents. They're just simply saying that they don't believe that we need to be doing shots across the bow, that we need, if we're going to do military strikes and actions, we need to have a definite national security interest in the United States. We need to have a strategy and objective and an exit capability of that. And we don't think the president's put forward any of those. we shouldn't be using the military just to bail out a crumbling foreign policy that this White House has had. I'm looking at overwhelming support against any kind of action in Syria right now.
All right, so I just want to bring back to the third question here. So you're leaning as a no vote. You think that that's probably the way it's going to go in Congress. And here's my last question. If the Congress does vote no and the president goes ahead with a strike anyway, what is going to be the reaction?
Well, I think the reaction from not just Congress but the American people is going to be outraged. But remember, guys, the president did this in Libya. I felt very strongly that the president should have come to Congress under the War Powers Act for the action he took in Libya. But he took that action without any approval from Congress. So we know he has a precedent of doing this kind of thing. But I think if he says, Congress, tell me what you think, if Congress says no, and then he takes this action, I think the American people are going to be outraged. And I know members of Congress will be.
Representative Randy Forbes of Virginia is our guest. And very quickly, because you sit on a pretty important committee here, have you heard from leadership about this yet? Do you know what the schedule is? When are you going to be called in, and will this be taken up in your committee?
We will come back in the regular time frame, which will be on the 9th. They will have a couple of hearings that will actually take place from some of the committees this week. Our committee will have hearings on this next week. We do expect to have General Dempsey and probably Secretary Kerry both there testifying, and certainly we're looking forward to those hearings so we can put some interesting questions to them and hopefully get good responses back.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time, and we will stay on this story and hopefully call on you again in the future.
Thank you, guys. It's great being with you.
Thank you, Congressman Randy Forbes of Virginia. Good to have you.